Mail-order bride lost at the wrong station until a cowboy's little girl called her mama. The sun was dipping low behind the red hills, painting the sky with streaks of gold and orange, when Clara Evans stepped off the train. She clutched her small trunk tightly, its worn leather corners scuffed from a long journey, and looked around the quiet platform. Dust swirled gently in the air, and a few townsfolk moved about, finishing their daily chores. Clara had spent weeks preparing for this moment, leaving behind the bustling streets of Boston for a life she only knew in letters and dreams. She was a mail-order bride, arranged through a trusted agency to marry a man she had never met. The letters had been polite and kind, full of promises of a simple, happy life on the frontier. But now, standing at the station, her heart thumped with excitement and a little fear. Only something felt wrong. The station was smaller than she expected. No wooden signs marked it clearly. The platform creaked under her boots, and the nearest building looked more like a storage shed than a welcoming station. No man stood there holding a sign with her name. No horse-drawn carriage waited. She swallowed hard and took a step forward, scanning the horizon. "Excuse me," she called politely to a man loading crates onto a wagon. "Is this the station for Whitaker's Ranch?" The man paused, squinting at her. "Whitaker's? Ain't no ranch near here," he said, his voice rough but not unkind. "You sure you got the right stop, ma'am?" Clara's stomach sank. She pulled the folded letters from her pocket and reread the instructions. She had been careful, double-checked the names, the dates, everything. Yet somehow, she must have gotten off at the wrong station. "Oh, I must be mistaken," she stammered, forcing a smile. "Thank you." The man tipped his hat and returned to his work, leaving Clara alone. The train whistle sounded behind her, echoing across the hills as if mocking her. She hugged her trunk tighter, feeling the weight of her mistake settle in. She was alone in a town she did not know, far from the man she was meant to marry. She had two options: try to find a way to the right station, which could take days on horseback or by buggy, or stay and figure out what to do in this unfamiliar place. Clara was practical. She needed rest, food, and a plan. She spotted a small general store a few steps from the platform. Its wooden sign swung gently in the evening breeze, reading McAllister's Supplies. She walked over, the gravel crunching under her boots. Inside, the air smelled of dried herbs, fresh bread, and the faint scent of leather. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged woman with flour on her apron, looked up from counting coins. "Evening, miss."
"You need something?" Clara smiled politely. "Yes, I wonder if you could help me."
"I'm new to this area. Could you tell me if there's any way to reach Whitaker's Ranch from here?" The woman's brow furrowed. "Whitaker's, you say? That's over the next county, and a rough ride it is. You alone?" Clara nodded, feeling a pang of unease. "Yes, I'm traveling alone." "You're brave, I'll give you that," the woman said, studying her. "It's not safe for a young lady to wander these parts alone at night. You'll want a place to stay." Clara's mind raced. She had been hoping to meet her future husband immediately, but that dream had vanished with the train whistle. I suppose I do." The shopkeeper smiled kindly. "You can stay at the boarding house down the street. Mrs. Harlow runs it. Tell her McAllister sent you. It ain't fancy, but it's warm and safe." Clara thanked her, feeling a small spark of relief. She stepped back into the cool evening air, glancing at the hills bathed in orange light. Perhaps this mistake was not entirely a disaster. She could rest, gather her thoughts, and find a way to the right place in the morning. The boarding house was small, a wooden two-story building with a creaking porch and warm light spilling from the windows. Clara rang the bell, and a plump woman with rosy cheeks and a bright smile opened the door. "Ah, you must be the young lady McAllister mentioned. Come in," she said, ushering Clara inside. The room was modest but tidy, with a small bed, a wooden dresser, and a window overlooking the dusty street. Clara set down her trunk and sat on the bed, letting out a long breath. She was alone, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. The next morning, Clara explored the town, hoping to gather supplies and perhaps find someone who knew the way to Whitaker's ranch. She moved with cautious curiosity, noticing details that made her heart ache with homesickness. The dusty streets, the wooden water troughs, the distant sound of cattle lowing. Life here was hard, but it had a rhythm, a raw honesty that fascinated her. As she turned a corner near the outskirts, she heard a soft, high-pitched voice singing to itself. She paused, curious, and peered down a narrow lane. There, a little girl with sun-kissed hair and dirt-smudged cheeks was chasing a chicken around a small yard. Clara's lips curved in a smile. "Hello, there," she called gently. The girl froze, then ran toward her, arms outstretched. "Who are you?" "I'm Clara," she said, kneeling to meet the child's eyes. "And who are you?" "I'm Emily," the girl exclaimed, bouncing on her heels.
Are you staying here in our town?
Clara hesitated. She hadn't meant to lie, but a sudden warmth filled her chest. "Yes, for a little while," she said softly. Emily's eyes sparkled. "Will you play with me?" Clara laughed, the sound echoing down the empty street. "I suppose I can." The little girl grabbed her hand and tugged her toward the yard. As they played, Clara noticed the girl's father, a tall man with a broad hat and strong hands, appear at the edge of the yard. His eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Clara with Emily. "Emily," he said firmly, "stay there." The girl obeyed reluctantly, but she looked back at Clara with pleading eyes. The man strode closer, his boots crunching on the dirt. "And you are?" he asked, his voice deep and cautious. Clara straightened, offering a polite bow. "My name is Clara Evans. I just arrived in town. I mean, no trouble." The man studied her carefully. His eyes softened slightly when he saw the way she looked at Emily. Not fear, but kindness. "I'm Tom Whitaker," he said finally. "This is my daughter, Emily. You've got a strong heart to be wandering around here alone." Clara felt a pang of embarrassment and gratitude. "Thank you, sir." "I'm just trying to find my way." Tom nodded, still wary but not unkind. "Well, it's a rough land, and folks have to look out for themselves. Best you stay in town until you know the roads. Emily, come here." The little girl ran to her father, but Clara noticed how her eyes lingered on her. Emily smiled shyly. "You're very brave," she said softly to Clara. "I like you." Clara felt warmth spread through her chest. For the first time since arriving, she felt a small connection, a thread of belonging. That evening, Clara returned to the boarding house with Emily skipping beside her. She had spent the day gathering supplies and asking questions discreetly, hoping to learn the safest route to the Whitaker Ranch. But more than that, she realized how much she enjoyed the company of the little girl. Over dinner, Emily jabbered endlessly about her day, the animals, and the adventures she imagined. Clara listened, laughing and asking questions, feeling a connection she hadn't expected to find so soon. When Clara tucked Emily into bed at her father's request, the girl looked up with wide eyes. "Clara, will you come play again tomorrow?" Clara smiled gently.
Of course, Emily. I'd like that very much.
Emily yawned and snuggled into her quilt. "Good night, Mama," she murmured sleepily. Clara froze, her heart skipping a beat. The little girl's words weren't just innocent. They were a spark of hope, a connection that warmed her in ways she hadn't expected. Tom Whitaker stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. He didn't say anything, but Clara saw something in his eyes, a mixture of surprise, caution, and curiosity. As she walked back to her room, Clara realized that this wrong station, this unexpected detour, might not be a mistake at all. Perhaps it was the beginning of something she had never imagined. A new life, new connections, and maybe even a family. She lay down on the bed, the distant whistle of the departing train echoing in her mind. Clara closed her eyes, feeling a strange sense of peace. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time since leaving Boston, she felt ready to face it. Some mistakes, she thought, might just lead you exactly where you needed to be. The sun rose over the rolling hills, casting golden light across the small town. Clara Evans stepped out of the boarding house, her trunk safely stored in the corner of her room, and took a deep breath of the crisp morning air. The mistakes of yesterday, the wrong station, the lonely platform, felt like distant memories. Today she had a plan. Learn more about this town, help where she could, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to Whitaker Ranch. As she walked toward the general store, she saw a familiar sight. Emily, the little girl with sun-kissed hair and sparkling brown eyes, was crouched on the ground trying to tie her shoes. The child looked up, grinning. "Clara,
You're awake, Emily called.
come play with me." Clara chuckled and knelt beside her. "Good morning, Emily. What are we playing today?" Emily tapped her fingers together in thought. "Let's pretend we're explorers. We can find treasure in the hills." Before Clara could answer, a deep voice cut across the yard. "Emily, stop bothering the neighbors." The girl froze. Tom Whitaker, her father, stood at the gate of the small yard. His tall figure was straight and commanding, yet something in his eyes softened when he looked at Clara. "Good morning, Mr. Whitaker," Clara said politely, standing. "I hope I'm not causing trouble." Tom's expression was unreadable. "You're new in town. That's trouble enough for some folks." He paused and glanced at Emily. "But she seems happy. I suppose that's something." Clara smiled, though she felt a little nervous under his watchful eyes. She is a bright girl. It's hard not to be happy around her. Tom grunted but said nothing more. Clara turned back to Emily. "Shall we go explore?" Emily's face lit up. "Let's go." The two walked through the small trails behind the town. The hills rolled gently, dotted with wild flowers and patches of green grass. Emily ran ahead, laughing as she picked up sticks and imagined them as magic wands. Clara followed slowly, keeping a careful watch on her new friend. As they reached a small clearing, Emily stopped suddenly. "Look! A treasure!" she shouted, pointing to a flat rock half covered by dirt. Clara knelt beside her. "What kind of treasure?" Emily brushed the dirt away with small hands. Beneath it was a smooth stone, etched with the faint outline of a heart. "A magic heart stone. It will protect us," Emily said with wide eyes. Clara laughed softly, brushing dirt from her skirt. "Then we better keep it safe." Emily nodded seriously. "We should hide it in our secret place. Promise you won't tell anyone?" Clara smiled. "I promise." The two spent the morning exploring, laughing, and imagining. Clara felt a warmth she hadn't known since leaving Boston. She realized how much she enjoyed Emily's company and how natural it felt to be near her. Later, as they walked back toward the town, Clara noticed Tom standing near the ranch gate. He had returned from checking his cattle, and his eyes softened when he saw Emily with Clara. "Clara," he said, his voice cautious, "you seem to get along with Emily. That's good. But you should know, it's not easy being a single father."
"This girl means the world to me." Clara nodded.
"I understand. I didn't mean to intrude. I, I, I only wanted to spend some time with her." Tom studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly.
You...
"Kind. I suppose it's all right, as long as you know your place." Clara smiled politely. "Of course, sir." Emily tugged at Clara's hand. "Can you come to the ranch today, please?" Tom hesitated. Clara saw the tension in his eyes, the worry of a father protecting his child. Then he sighed. "Fine, but you'll be staying outside the barns."
You'll help with Emily, not wander off.
"Thank you, Mr. Whitaker," Clara said softly. Emily squealed in delight. "Mama, let's go!" Clara froze, her heart skipping a beat. The little girl's words were innocent, but they carried a weight she hadn't expected. She glanced at Tom, unsure how he would react. Tom's face was unreadable, but he did not speak. He simply nodded toward the ranch, signaling them to follow. The ranch was larger than Clara expected. Wooden fences enclosed fields of grazing cattle, and a small barn stood at the edge, sheltering horses and hay. The smell of hay, leather, and earth filled the air. Clara's heart quickened, not from fear, but from wonder. Life here was hard, yes, but it was real. It was alive. Emily ran straight to a small wooden swing attached to a sturdy oak tree. "Come, Mama! Push me!" Clara laughed softly. All right," she said, taking a seat behind the swing. She pushed gently, careful not to go too high. Emily's laughter rang through the ranch, bright and joyful. Tom leaned against the fence, watching. His expression was softening, though he kept his eyes on Clara. He seemed to notice how naturally she moved, how patient and gentle she was with Emily. "You've got away with her," Tom said finally, his voice low. "Not many strangers do." Clara shrugged. "I suppose I'm just used to caring for others, children especially." Tom nodded, but didn't respond further. He seemed lost in thought, and Clara didn't press. The afternoon brought small chores around the ranch. Clara helped Emily feed the chickens and collect eggs. She learned the rhythm of frontier life quickly, and even Tom couldn't hide his surprise. "You've done this before," he remarked as she handed Emily a basket full of eggs. "Just a little," Clara said, smiling. "I grew up helping at home. My mother taught me everything." Tom's eyes softened. "Your mother would be proud of you." Emily hugged Clara's leg.
Mama.
"Can you stay longer?" Clara's heart ached,
Mama.
and she felt a lump in her throat. I'll see what I can do," she said softly. Tom cleared his throat, and Clara looked up. "You've made quite an impression on Emily," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Be careful. She's quick to trust, and she has a big heart." Clara nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. "I'll be careful, Mr. Whitaker. I promise." As the sun dipped low again, painting the ranch in gold and pink, Clara walked back to the boarding house. Her body was tired from the day's work, but her heart was full. She hadn't planned to stay at this town, and she certainly hadn't planned to bond with a little girl or her father, but the connection was real, and it felt important. That night, she sat by the window, writing letters she wasn't sure she would send. She described the town, the ranch, and Emily. She wrote about Tom's cautious kindness and the warmth of the small frontier community. And she wrote about how her life, which had seemed so carefully planned, was now full of unexpected possibilities. Perhaps, she thought, this wrong station was not a mistake at all. Perhaps it was where she was meant to be. The next morning, Clara returned to the ranch with Emily skipping beside her, holding her hand tightly. Tom greeted them at the gate, his eyes unreadable. But when he saw the joy in Emily's face and the calm confidence in Clara's steps, he said nothing, letting them pass. Clara felt a new sense of purpose. She didn't yet know what the future held, but she knew one thing: she could face it here. With Emily, with Tom, and with the quiet strength that had carried her this far, she felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had come to a wrong station, but maybe, just maybe, she had found the right place. The morning sun broke through the clouds in soft streaks of gold, and the wind carried the earthy scent of the hills. Clara Evans rose early, as she had every day since arriving at the town, and made her way toward Whitaker Ranch. Emily was already waiting at the gate, twirling a small stick like a sword, her hair glowing in the dawn light.
Good morning, Mama.
Emily called, rushing forward. Clara laughed softly. Good morning, Emily. Are you ready for chores? Emily frowned. Chores? Do we have to? Clara knelt and placed her hands on Emily's shoulders. Sometimes we must do things we don't like so we can enjoy the things we love. Come on, I'll show you how it can be fun. The little girl nodded reluctantly but allowed herself to be guided. Together they entered the ranch, where the soft lowing of cattle filled the air and chickens scuttled through the dust. Tom Whitaker was already at work, checking fences and marking the cattle. He glanced at Clara and gave a small nod of acknowledgement before returning to his work. Clara and Emily started by feeding the chickens. Emily giggled as Clara explained how to scatter the feed and collect eggs without frightening the hens. The sun rose higher, and soon they moved to the barn, carrying hay and stacking it neatly. Clara felt the ache in her muscles but welcomed it. It was a different kind of tiredness than the city work she had known, a satisfying, honest work that connected her to the land. Tom watched from the barn's doorway, his expression softening as he noticed Clara's skill and patience. She didn't just do the work, she encouraged Emily, making every task feel like a game. You're a quick learner, Tom said finally, approaching them. You handle the chores better than most folks who've grown up on farms. Clara smiled politely. I've helped at home, sir. I guess it just comes naturally. Tom nodded. It seems so. But natural or not, it's good to see someone caring for Emily while learning the work. Not everyone would take the time. Emily hugged Clara's leg. Mama, can we go find more treasure after chores? Clara laughed. We'll see, Emily. First, we finish the work. By midday, the sky darkened. Thick gray clouds rolled across the hills, and the wind picked up, carrying the distant rumble of thunder. Tom frowned and tightened his coat around his shoulders. A storm's coming, he muttered. We better get everything secured. Clara followed him around the ranch, helping tie down loose boards, secure the horses, and gather firewood. Emily stayed close, holding Clara's hand tightly. The girl's small body trembled with both fear and excitement. You've done this before, haven't you? Tom asked Clara quietly as they worked. Clara nodded, a little. My father used to own a small farm. I helped with storms like this sometimes. Tom's eyes narrowed slightly. It's a different land here. Things can turn dangerous fast. Clara met his gaze steadily. I understand. I'll do whatever I can to help. Her words carried sincerity. and Tom felt a small relief. He had been worried about trusting an outsider, but her calmness reassured him. The storm hit by late afternoon. Rain poured in sheets, wind bent the trees, and lightning split the sky. Clara and Tom moved quickly, bringing Emily inside the barn for safety. The little girl clung to Clara, shivering. "Don't worry, Emily," Clara whispered, brushing wet hair from the girl's face. "We're safe here." Tom nodded, glancing at Clara with a hint of admiration. She didn't panic, didn't flinch. She simply focused on keeping the child safe, showing courage under pressure. For hours they worked together, securing the animals, covering haystacks with tarps, and checking the fences. Clara's city manners and gentle hands had quickly transformed into practical frontier skills. She learned the rhythm of the land, how to anticipate danger, and how to act decisively. Emily watched in awe, her small hand clutching Clara's. "Mama."
"You're brave," she said softly. Clara's heart ached at the word.
She knelt to Emily's level and smiled. "You're brave too, Emily. Bravery comes in many ways." Tom, overhearing this, felt a strange warmth in his chest. Clara's influence on his daughter was undeniable. He had been cautious at first, worried that someone so new could upset the balance of their lives. But now, seeing their bond, he couldn't help but feel respect, and perhaps something deeper, for the woman who had come into their lives by accident. The storm lasted most of the afternoon, but by evening it had passed, leaving a damp, shining world in its wake. Mud clung to their boots, and hay was soaked. But the ranch had survived. Clara, exhausted but satisfied, leaned against the barn door, watching the sunset in the distance. Emily climbed onto her shoulders, looking down at the puddles and washed-out fields. "We did it, Mama." "We saved the ranch." Clara laughed softly, holding the girl steady. "We did it together, Emily. That's the important part." Tom approached, brushing mud from his coat. "You handled yourself well today," he said to Clara. "Not just with the work, but with Emily. You didn't panic. You let her." That says a lot about a person.
Clara felt her cheeks warm under his praise. "Thank you, sir. I only did what felt right."
Tom nodded thoughtfully. "It's good. The land tests everyone, and you passed." That night, as the rain stopped and the stars began to appear, Clara helped Emily into bed. The girl was tired but still full of energy, talking about adventures, treasures, and magic stones. Clara listened, smiling softly, feeling the bond between them grow stronger. "Good night, Mama," Emily murmured, snuggling into her quilt. Clara froze, her heart skipping a beat. The word Mama felt heavy, full of meaning she wasn't ready to accept, yet it filled her with warmth. She kissed the girl's forehead gently. "Good night, Emily. Sweet dreams." Tom, standing in the doorway, watched silently. He didn't speak, but the lines on his face softened. He had begun to see Clara not just as a stranger, but as someone who could be trusted, someone who might belong with them. The next morning, Clara rose early again, her muscles still sore from the previous day's work. She walked to the barn and found Tom already feeding the horses. "You're up early," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I want to make sure everything's ready for the day," Clara replied. "The storm left some damage, and I want to help." Tom nodded, impressed by her dedication. "You've got a good head on your shoulders. Most folks would be complaining, not fixing fences." Clara smiled politely. "I like to help. And I like seeing things done right." Emily ran up to them, holding a small bucket of eggs. "Mama, look at what I found." Clara knelt and took the eggs, praising Emily for her careful work. Together, they continued the morning chores, working in harmony with the land and each other. By midday, the ranch was in better shape than before the storm. Clara, Tom, and Emily sat on the porch, enjoying the quiet after the hard work. Clara felt a deep satisfaction. The day had been exhausting, but it had also shown her that she could handle life on the frontier, and that she was beginning to find a place here. Tom looked at Clara, his expression thoughtful. "You've got courage, Clara, and patience. That's rare in people. Most wouldn't last a week in the storm we had yesterday." Clara smiled softly. "Thank you, sir. I'm learning. Every day teaches me something new." Emily climbed onto Clara's lap, hugging her tightly.
Mama, can we find more treasures tomorrow?
Clara laughed, brushing Emily's hair back. "We'll find plenty of treasures. But the greatest treasure, I think, is right here." She looked at Tom, then at the wide expanse of land around them, and felt something shift in her heart. Perhaps this was where she belonged. As the sun dipped low again, painting the sky with colors of fire and gold, Clara realized that life on the frontier was not easy, but it was honest. It was full of challenges, yes, but also full of moments like this, moments of connection, trust, and the quiet courage that made humans remarkable. She had come to the wrong station, and yet here, amid storms, chores, and the laughter of a little girl, Clara Evans began to understand what it meant to be truly alive. She had found a family she hadn't expected, and the trials of the land only made the bond stronger. For the first time, she felt certain she could face anything, as long as she had Emily by her side, and perhaps, one day, Tom too. The morning sun spilled gold over the rolling hills, catching the tops of the fences and the warm brown roofs of the Whitaker Ranch. Clara Evans stretched and took a deep breath of the crisp frontier air. Life here had grown familiar in ways she hadn't expected, waking to the sound of chickens, the lowing of cattle, and Emily's laughter echoing across the fields. Today, however, Clara felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. Emily had been unusually quiet during breakfast, fidgeting with her spoon and stealing glances at Clara. Clara knew something was on the little girl's mind, but she wasn't sure what. "Emily?" Clara asked gently. "Is there something you want to tell me?" Emily's eyes widened, and she looked down at her plate. I want to show you something," she whispered. Clara set down her spoon and followed Emily outside, where the sun warmed the ground and the air smelled of fresh hay. The little girl ran to the small garden behind the barn, where she had hidden a bundle of freshly picked wildflowers.
"These are for you," Emily said, handing them over. "For my mama." Clara froze, holding the flowers tightly in her hand.
The word "mama" hit her like a wave, so innocent, so pure, but so full of meaning. She knelt and looked into Emily's bright brown eyes.
"Emily, Clara paused, her voice catching. "You call me?"
Mama? Emily nodded seriously. Yes. You take care of me, and you play with me, and you help me.
"You're my mama." Clara's chest ached with a mixture of joy and fear. She hadn't expected to feel this way. The little girl's trust was a treasure, and she knew that every decision she made from here on would affect Emily profoundly. Tom Whitaker appeared at the gate, watching the scene quietly. He had overheard the conversation, and his jaw tightened. He loved Emily more than anything, and the sight of her calling someone else "mama" stirred a complicated mix of emotions in him. He felt relief. Clara had won Emily's trust, but also unease. This stranger who had appeared by accident was becoming more than just a friend. Clara stood slowly, holding the flowers. Emily, Charlesa, I am honored, she said softly. But you know, I'm not your real mama. Your real mama? She's someone very special. Emily's lip trembled. But I want you to be my mama. Please? Clara knelt again, brushing the girl's hair from her face. I will always care for you, Emily. I promise that, and we can be a family together in our own way. But it's up to your papa to decide how we all live together. Emily smiled, satisfied with the answer, and ran off toward the barn to play with the chickens. Clara watched her go, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Somehow, this small frontier town, this rugged ranch, had become a home for her, more than she could have imagined when she stepped off the train months ago. Over the next few days, Clara and Emily settled into a rhythm. They worked together on chores, played in the fields, and shared stories under the shade of the old oak tree. Clara discovered that Emily had a wild imagination, inventing adventures and pretending they were explorers, treasure hunters, and sometimes even cowboys and cowgirls. Tom observed quietly, noting how naturally Clara interacted with his daughter. He had seen strangers come and go before, but Clara was different. She didn't just tolerate Emily's energy, she embraced it. She didn't just help with the work, she made it fun and meaningful. One evening, as the sun set in fiery reds and oranges, Tom found himself sitting on the porch, watching Clara and Emily chase each other across the yard. He felt something stirring in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. She had brought laughter and warmth into their lives, and he couldn't ignore it. That night, Clara sat in her small room at the boarding house, thinking about her life and the choices before her. She had received another letter from the man she was supposed to marry, the one who had expected her at the correct station. The letter was polite, impatient even, asking where she was and expressing frustration at her delay. Clara read the letter carefully, her heart heavy. She knew she could still follow through with her original plan, catch a stagecoach, reach the right town, and meet him as promised. But after days with Emily and seeing the genuine kindness in Tom, she realized that life with him and his daughter could be something extraordinary. The letter felt heavy in her hand, a reminder of the life she had planned, a life she didn't want anymore. She folded it slowly and placed it in her trunk. Somehow, she knew that the right path wasn't the one she had imagined. It was the one she had discovered by accident. The next morning, Clara returned to the ranch, determined to spend another day helping and bonding with Emily. She found the little girl waiting at the gate, holding a small basket of berries. "Mama, look what I found!" Emily exclaimed, running up to her. Clara laughed, taking the basket.
You've done well, Emily.
"These will be perfect for breakfast." They spent the morning working together, picking vegetables, feeding the animals, and repairing fences damaged in the last storm. Tom joined them at midday, offering guidance and quietly observing Clara's skill and patience. At one point, a group of townsfolk rode by on horseback, bringing news of a neighboring ranch struggling after the storm. Tom and Clara exchanged a glance. Without words, Clara understood that help was needed, and she quickly organized a plan. Clara and Tom gathered supplies, loaded them onto wagons, and rode to the neighboring ranch. Emily clung to Clara's side, holding a small bag of tools. Together, they helped repair fences, gather fallen supplies, and calm frightened animals. Clara's ability to think quickly and organize the work impressed the other ranchers. "You're a natural leader," one of the men said to Clara, shaking his head in admiration. Clara blushed.
I'm just doing what I can.
She replied softly. Tom rode beside her, watching her carefully. Each day he noticed her courage, her kindness, and the way she could inspire people, young and old alike. He realized that she was not just a stranger who had stumbled into their lives. She was someone he could trust, someone who could share the burden of life on the frontier. As the sun dipped low, Clara, Tom, and Emily returned to their ranch. The animals were settled, fences were repaired, and the small community had benefited from their work. Emily ran ahead, shouting about the treasures they had found during the day. Clara paused at the edge of the porch, looking at Tom. "You've been very kind to let me be part of your family," she said quietly. Tom's expression softened. "You didn't just join our family, Clara. You've become part of it. Emily trusts you, and I do too." Clara felt warmth spread through her chest. The words were simple, but the meaning was deep. She had arrived at the wrong station, lost and uncertain, but she had found something far more valuable. A place where she was needed, a family who accepted her, and a life filled with purpose. That night, as Clara tucked Emily into bed, the little girl whispered, "Mama, can you stay forever?" Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I hope so, Emily. We'll see what the future brings." The child snuggled into her quilt, sleeping soundly, trusting completely in Clara's presence. Outside the window, the stars twinkled over the ranch, and Clara sat quietly, watching the sky.